A few minutes with you about the survey that we recently took about returning back to PCN's campus for worship. It's a very short presentation. I'm going to try to go through it quickly. If you're interested in the full report, that will be posted on our website at www.pcnovato.org, or you can contact any one of the reconvening task force members and they'd be happy to share the information with you. So let's get started. Again, this will be pretty quick, but for a fuller explanation, again, see that report that will be posted later on. Now, the first question that we asked is, if we open for worship in the sanctuary, how safe would you feel coming to worship in person? Only 1/3 of the respondents would feel very safe, with the remainder either unsure, 44%, or not at all safe, 23%. One thing I would like to note is that about 159 people responded to the survey, and you can see on each of these slides, directly beneath the title slide, the number of people who actually responded and the number of people who skipped that particular item. So the second question we asked was, if we open for worship in the sanctuary, how likely would you actually attend in person? Now, respondents were more evenly split on this item. 35% said they were very likely, whereas 38% said they were very unlikely, with the rest being unsure. Third question, would you rather wait and resume in-person worship in the sanctuary once all the restrictions on gathering were lifted? 2/3 of the respondents said that they would rather wait and resume worship in the sanctuary once all restrictions were lifted. And I think you'll see when we get to the section on the open-ended comments what those restrictions meant to those folks who answered this question. How willing would you be to experiment with on-campus small group activities outside? That's key. 42% of the respondents would be willing to experiment, compared to only 13% who would be unwilling. And again, this is for outside activities. While this question referenced small group activities, some respondents in their response to the open-end item indicated a desire to have worship services outside. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about the open-ended responses. The next question, if we recreated opportunities for small group gatherings, Bible study, fellowship, etc., to meet inside, again, that's a key distinction, to meet inside, how safe would you feel attending those in person? Now, quite a few of the respondents, only 17%, would feel very safe meeting inside for small group gatherings, but quite a few more indicated they would be not at all safe. And you can see on the graph here what that looks like. How likely would you actually participate in small group gatherings inside? Again, that's the key word, inside. Only 15% of the respondents would be likely to participate in small group gatherings inside. 58% were very unlikely to participate, with the remaining 27% unsure. Now, how satisfied are you with the current way we are conducting worship services online? Overwhelmingly, 72% of the respondents indicated they were very satisfied, with only 3%, or 4 people, of the respondents voicing high levels of dissatisfaction. The remaining quarter of respondents were neither very satisfied or dissatisfied, so they were neutral in their opinion. Now, when we talk about the open-ended questions, what we did is we looked at all the comments, read through them, and each comment can receive up to 4 codes for a particular theme or topic. So what you see on the slide here are those themes or topics that were cited 5 or more times. You can see clearly that the single most cited theme or topic related to adherence to guidelines. That includes things like face mask wearing, hand sanitizer provision and usage, social distancing, and temperature checks. This was mentioned 98 times. The second most cited theme or topic related to either an end of the pandemic or that we had reached phase 4, which means we're no longer subject to this shelter-in-place order, and that a vaccine was available. So you can see the discrepancies between, if we're going to come back, we have to have really clear precautions in place. Some people said, doesn't matter what kind of precautions are in place, I'm not coming back until it's all over with. So you can see the differences there. Now, the next highest topic was just 9 mentions, outside worship. And you remember in our other question, we asked about experimentation with small group activities for outside worship. There seemed to be a willingness there, but it also looks like people are interested in potentially looking at outdoor worship. So by extrapolating these mentions along with a willingness to experiment with small group activities, the possibility of being outdoors either for small groups or for worship may be an area to explore. The worship committee has done that already, but they may want to revisit that based on the results from the survey. Now, the next 3 topics and themes had fewer mentions. Education or communication. People were really clear that whatever we decide to do, there has to be a lot of education about what's going to happen and communication. So, for example, if we come back to church before the pandemic ends and we have all of our various guidelines that we are enforcing, what are those guidelines? What are the consequences if we don't obey those guidelines? And what are kind of our next steps? So that will be super important. Another 6 mentions involve singing, or no singing, really. And then the next most mentioned one, which is only 5 times, was improved ventilation in the sanctuary. Now, the second question about online worship enhancements, there were only about 40 comments that came in with any kind of suggestions for enhancements. And so the one that was mentioned the most was around music. Some people wanted more contemporary music. Some people wanted more traditional kinds of music. Some people wanted additional lyrics. So there wasn't any kind of consistent modification to music other than they'd like to have some kind of some change, some enhancement to that, whatever that means. All the rest of the mentions, and again, there are only about 40 of them, only received 1, 2, 3, or 4. None of them received 5 or more. So friends, here are some high-level insights and recommendations. There doesn't appear to be a lot of urgency to return to campus either to worship in the sanctuary or to have small group in-person gatherings. When we do return to worship in the sanctuary, it will be imperative that all guidelines by the CDC, the state of California, and the county of Marin be observed and enforced. A strong communication plan will need to be put into place in order to ensure that everyone is aware of what those guidelines are, what the expectation is for people who are on campus, and what the consequences might be for non-compliance. However, there does seem to be a willingness to explore worship and/or small group activities outside. The worship committee did initially investigate some options around worshiping outside, but then went ahead and decided to invest in upgrading technology to continue worshiping online. And the data support that decision. Again, overwhelmingly, the people who are worshiping with us online are satisfied with that, with just some minor tweaks to that. So even after coming back in person, there's a desire for some to continue to worship online. And so the worship committee and the reconvening task force will continue to be investing in infrastructure upgrades to help us do that. But again, the worship committee and the reconvening task force may take this opportunity now that the data have come back to re-examine whether or not they want to offer some different opportunities outdoors. So I know that that was a very quick summary of the congregational survey. I'm glad that you were able to join me today to listen to this. Again, if you would like to have more details, more data, more sort of narrative around all of this data, be sure to read the report, which will be posted on the website, www.pcnovato.org, or reach out to Adam or reach out to any one of the reconvening task force members, and they would be happy to share with you that information. So again, friends, have a lovely day. Glad you were able to join me for a little while at least. Take care.